Like it does today, something impossible moved through the air above it. Not a bird, not a bat, but a living structure so vast that even now, it feels like a mistake. Imagine standing on the edge of a late Cretaceous shoreline. The sea is warm, shallow, heavy with life. The wind moves slowly across tidal flats that stretch for miles. And then the light changes, not because of clouds, but because something has passed between the sun and the earth. A shadow with a wingspan wider than a small aircraft. This was Quetzalcoatlus northropi, the largest flying creature ever known to exist, and it should not have been able to fly. To understand why Quetzalcoatlus is so unsettling, we need to begin with scale. Its wingspan is estimated at 10 to 11 meters, over 35 feet from tip to tip, taller than a giraffe when standing upright. Its body mass may have approached 250 kilograms, yet its bones were thinner than many human fingers. This was not a bird scaled up to monstrous proportions. It was something else entirely. A pterosaur, a lineage of flying reptiles that ruled the skies for over 150 million years before birds ever became dominant. And Quetzalcoatlus was their final, most extreme expression, an evolutionary experiment pushed to the edge of collapse. The remains of Quetzalcoatlus were first discovered in Texas, in rocks laid down when the Atlantic was still forming, when North America and Europe were slowly drifting apart. At that time, the western edge of the Atlantic basin was bordered by vast coastal plains, river deltas, and inland seas. This was not open ocean flight. This was something more disturbing, a creature of staggering size moving through continental airspace, above floodplains and shorelines where nothing else remotely comparable existed. No predators that could challenge it, no competitors that could match it, no precedent. But the real mystery is not how large Quetzalcoatlus was. It's how it stayed airborne at all. At that size, powered flight becomes brutally unforgiving. Every gram of mass must justify itself. Every wing beat must overcome gravity with absolute efficiency. Birds the size of albatrosses already operate near the upper limit of flight physics. Quetzalcoatlus shattered that limit. It did so not by flapping constantly, but by gliding, using long, narrow wings designed to exploit rising air currents along coastlines and thermal updrafts above warm land. But even gliding requires takeoff, and takeoff for Quetzalcoatlus was the most dangerous moment of its life. Unlike birds, pterosaurs did not launch using only their hind legs. They used all four limbs. Powerful forelimbs, anchored by reinforced shoulder joints and massive chest muscles, vaulted the animal into the air in a single explosive motion. This quadrupedal launch system was unlike anything alive today. It suggests something chilling. Quetzalcoatlus lived in a world where failure to launch meant death. A stumble, a miscalculation, a soft substrate beneath its feet. Any one of these could trap the animal on the ground, where its immense wings became liabilities rather than tools. This was not a creature built for mistakes. Once airborne, Quetzalcoatlus became something almost unreal. Its wings cut silently through the air. Its neck, long, rigid, and spear-like, extended forward, ending in a toothless beak capable of precise, rapid strikes. For years, it was assumed this animal hunted like a seabird, skimming fish from the water, but the evidence suggests something far stranger. One leading theory proposes that Quetzalcoatlus was a terrestrial stalker, not a hunter of the sea, but of the land. Walking slowly across floodplains, towering above smaller animals, picking up prey with swift surgical movements. Juvenile dinosaurs, small reptiles, anything unable to escape its reach. In this vision, Quetzalcoatlus is not a graceful ocean glider. It is a silent giant moving across open terrain, its wings folded like cloaks, its shadow stretching far ahead of it. A predator without teeth, a hunter without claws, yet perfectly adapted to a world that had never seen anything like it. This raises a deeper question. Why did evolution allow this to happen? Why push flight to such an extreme when the margin for error was so thin? The answer may lie in a world without competition. During the late Cretaceous, large predatory birds did not yet exist. The skies were open, the ecological ceiling was empty, and pterosaurs, already masters of flight, were free to expand upward, larger, broader, more dominant with each passing million years. Quetzalcoatlus was not an anomaly. It was the endpoint of a long, dangerous trajectory. But trajectories can only go so far. As the Cretaceous drew to a close, the environment began to shift. Sea levels fluctuated, climate patterns destabilized, and new competitors, early birds, began to diversify rapidly. The skies were changing, and creatures as specialized as Quetzalcoatlus had no room to adapt. What made it supreme also made it fragile. Somewhere above the prehistoric Atlantic coastline, Quetzalcoatlus reached the limit of what biology could support. And beyond that limit, there was only collapse, because when the world finally turned against it, a creature this large had nowhere left to go. The sky that once belonged to Quetzalcoatlus did not disappear overnight. It narrowed, slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly. For millions of years, pterosaurs had ruled the aerial world with little resistance. But toward the end of the late Cretaceous, something subtle began to change beneath their wings. The air itself was becoming crowded. Birds, once small, marginal creatures, were evolving rapidly. They were lighter, more agile, more adaptable. Unlike giant pterosaurs, birds could perch, nest in trees, and exploit environments that demanded constant maneuverability rather than raw scale. They did not challenge Quetzalcoatlus directly. They didn't need to. They occupied the spaces it could not. Forests, dense coastlines, variable climates, fragmented ecosystems, places where a wingspan of 11 meters became a liability. Quetzalcoatlus depended on openness, wide floodplains, clear launch zones, stable wind patterns, predictable prey. Its body was an engineering marvel, but one calibrated to a specific world. Even minor environmental instability could cascade into fatal consequences. A shift in vegetation could limit takeoff areas. A drop in prey density could make flight energetically impossible. A single failed launch could end a life that took decades to mature. This was not resilience. This was precision balanced on the edge of collapse. As climates fluctuated near the end of the Cretaceous, ecosystems began to fragment. Sea levels rose and fell. Coastal plains flooded, then vanished. Inland seas retreated, altering wind patterns that giant pterosaurs relied on for efficient flight. For smaller animals, these changes were challenges. For Quetzalcoatlus, they were existential threats, because there was no smaller version to retreat into, no alternative lifestyle to adopt. Its size was not just an advantage, it was a commitment evolution could not undo. Then, approximately 66 million years ago, the final pressure arrived. Not gradually, not subtly, violently. A massive asteroid struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, releasing energy equivalent to billions of nuclear weapons. Shockwaves raced through the atmosphere. Wildfires ignited across continents. Dust and aerosols choked the sky, dimming sunlight for months, possibly years. For flying giants, this was catastrophic. Flight is energy-intensive even under ideal conditions. In a world where sunlight is blocked, where plant life collapses, where food chains unravel, sustained flight becomes impossible. Thermals weaken, wind systems destabilize, prey disappears. Quetzalcoatlus did not starve slowly, it lost the sky itself. Smaller birds may have survived by sheltering, scavenging, and reproducing quickly. Some could perch, some could hide, some could wait. Quetzalcoatlus could do none of these. It could not burrow, it could not cling, it could not survive long without flight. The very adaptation that once lifted it above all others now tied its fate to a world that no longer existed. And so, without spectacle or witnesses, the largest flying creature in Earth's history vanished. Today, all that remains are fragments, hollow bones pressed into stone, joint structures hinting at unimaginable forces, a silhouette reconstructed from absence. No living creature even approaches its scale, and perhaps that is not a coincidence. Quetzalcoatlus represents a biological boundary, a reminder that evolution does not aim for balance or safety. It explores extremes, even when those extremes are unsustainable. For a brief moment in Earth's history, the sky was claimed by something that defied intuition, something that pushed flight to its absolute limit. And when that limit was crossed, the experiment ended. Not because it failed, but because the world moved on. Even now, when large birds struggle against turbulent air or modern aircraft rely on precise engineering to stay aloft, we are reminded of a deeper truth. The sky is not a forgiving place, and once, long before humans ever looked upward in wonder, it carried a shadow so vast that it darkened the prehistoric Atlantic below, a shadow that will never return.